What do you even say when the judge holds up a printed log of every call your husband made while you were in a hotel bed with someone else? How do you explain 43 ignored calls in one night, all lined up in black and white, while your own screenshots and jokes about your clingy husband are played on a screen behind you? Can you still pretend he's the villain when the courtroom goes silent and the orders start that same day? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Evadne Roe, and I still think most of what I did made sense at the time. I was 34, I had a full-time job, a 5-year-old, a husband who never wanted to go anywhere, and a face that finally started to look good in photos after years of feeling invisible. That is how I saw it. People like to jump straight to the word cheating, but for me it started with something much smaller, him calling too much. Noah had always been that way. Even before the wedding, he checked in during the day, sent little messages, asked if I got home safe. At the beginning, I told myself it was sweet. After a few years, it felt like a weight on my neck. When I started working at the property management office, the calls got worse. If I left the office and did not text right away, my phone started buzzing. He said it was because he worried. I said it was because he had no life. That Friday, I stared at myself in the bathroom mirror and decided I looked good. The new dress fit better than I expected. I told Noah I had a small work thing with some of the girls and that it might run late. He asked what time I would be home. I said I did not know, that it depended on the trains, and I asked him not to start with his questions again. He looked hurt and asked if I could at least keep my phone on loud in case something came up with Mia. I rolled my eyes and said he was acting like I was going to another country, not to a bar on the other side of town. In my head, I was being honest. I worked all week, I did daycare runs, I cooked when I had the energy. I told myself I deserved one night where I did not have to answer to anyone. Men do that all the time. That was the story I repeated. I did not ask many follow-up questions when he mentioned that Mia had a bit of a cough. Kids always had something. He said the school had sent an email about some allergy form we still needed to sign. I said he was better at reading forms than I was, and that he could handle it for one evening. The rooftop bar was crowded and loud, with colored lights and music that made the floor shake a little. Nadia and Tessa were already there when I arrived, waving at me like they had discovered a celebrity. Nadia told me my dress looked amazing. Tessa said Noah would probably call twice before I sat down. I laughed and said it would be more than twice, that he always did that. I knew they would take my side. They never liked how serious Noah was. We took photos right away, the three of us pressed together with the city behind us. Nadia asked how things were at home. I said they were fine, and then added that Noah had become more clingy lately, especially since I started spending more time at work. I did not say he was the one who pushed me to apply for the job in the first place. It did not fit the story I was building. I said he blew up my phone if I did not text every hour, and I made a little face like I was trapped. Right on cue, my phone buzzed on the table. His name showed on the screen. I did not even look at the message. I turned the screen so they could see his name and the tiny preview of his text. Nadia laughed and asked if he did that every time I went out. I said he could not stand the idea of me having fun without him. I said he was acting like a security guard, not a husband. I knew they would laugh, and they did. It felt good. It felt like proof that I was not crazy. Another notification came, then another. I flipped the phone face down. Tessa told me to just put it in my bag and pretend I forgot it at home. I said that if I did not answer, he would turn up here, and we all laughed again. Inside, I thought that if he did come, it would only make him look worse. A part of me wanted him to do it, so everyone would see what I lived with. He called again. I picked up the phone, opened the call screen, and took a quick screenshot of all the missed calls from earlier in the week. Work, grocery store, pharmacy, all the same pattern. I showed the screen to Nadia and Tessa, and they leaned in, counting. I told them he once called 10 times in a row because I did not answer while I was in the shower. I left out the part where he was home with a sick child and could not find the fever medicine. In my version, he was just needy. When the drinks came, I posted a story with the city behind us. I added a sticker to hide part of the screen and dropped in the screenshot of his calls underneath. I wrote a little joke about someone acting like I lived in a war zone. People started reacting right away. Laughing faces, comments about him being intense. I watched the numbers grow and felt something warm in my chest. It was not just the drink, it was the feeling of being on the right side of the joke. My phone buzzed again and again. I ignored it. The music was loud. The girls were talking about their own problems. Nadia complained about her ex. Tessa talked about a guy she was flirting with online. I said I understood because Noah could not deal with the idea that other men might look at me. I called him insecure. I said he should be proud to have a wife other men wanted. Nadia nodded like that was wise. None of them asked how Mia was. I did not offer that information. Much later, when we stepped outside to catch our rides, the air was cold and sharp. My phone showed a long column of missed calls and messages. The newest one said Mia had thrown up once, and he was not sure if it was serious. Another said the school had sent a final reminder about the allergy form. He asked me to call him. He said he was worried. I stared at the words and felt a small pinch of guilt. Then I told myself he was exaggerating to pull me away from my night. When I got home, the apartment was dark except for the soft blue light of the television. Noah was not watching it. He was asleep on the couch, phone still in his hand. A cartoon menu flickered on the screen. An empty bowl sat on the table, the spoon still in it. Mia's blanket was crumpled on the other end of the couch. I walked past them, kicked off my shoes, and went to the bathroom. I did not wake him. I told myself he deserved to feel what it was like to worry. Later, when I came back for a glass of water, I saw the laptop open on the table. The screen showed a simple note window, nothing fancy. At the top it said, "Missed calls, Friday." Under that he had typed a date and a time, and the words, "No answer, Mia sick, email from school." He added another time and wrote something about the form. I felt defensive right away. I told myself he was creating a record just to use against me in our next fight. I did not see it as anything more than drama. I closed the laptop with a small snap and went to bed, still sure I was the one who needed protection. On Monday morning, I woke up before my alarm because the bed felt too big. Noah had already left with Mia for school. He often did that on days when I went out the night before. He said he did not want to wake me if I was tired. I told myself he was sulking and trying to make me feel guilty. In my head, he was the one creating distance. I checked my phone. There were more messages from him. He had written that Mia's temperature went down in the night, that he gave her medicine, that she finally slept. He had also reminded me about the allergy form again. I scrolled fast, did not answer, and opened social media instead. People were still reacting to my story from the bar. They wrote that my husband sounded intense, that they would block someone who called that much. I liked a few comments and felt seen. At work, the property management office buzzed with small noises. Phones rang, keyboards clicked. I sat at my desk in the open-plan space and pretended to focus on emails. Nadia walked by my chair and said she could not believe the missed calls from my husband. She said she showed my story to her cousin, who joked that Noah needed a hobby. I said that this was my normal and that it was exhausting. It felt good to be the one other women felt sorry for. That was the morning I really noticed Luca. He worked for another company in the same building, a regional sales manager or something like that. He passed our row and stopped to ask Nadia about a tenant. When he turned to leave, he looked at me in a way that held a second too long. Later, Nadia whispered that he had asked who I was. She said he called me the woman with the blue dress from the elevator last week. I pretended to be annoyed, but inside I felt a small jump. By mid-morning, he stopped by my desk with a file that he said had been misdelivered. He asked if I was the new admin who started last year. I told him I'd been there longer, and that the company only just gave me a better title. He smiled in a way that made lines at the corner of his eyes. He said he had seen me around and wondered how he had missed me for so long. It was silly and smooth, but I soaked it up. Soon it became normal that he stopped for small talks. He would ask how my weekend was. I would tell him that my husband spent it counting my drinks and calls. I framed it as a joke, said that my husband treated me like a teenager with a curfew. Luca shook his head and said that was not how a partner should act. He said I seemed responsible and did not need a babysitter. I thought it was nice that someone finally said what I had been thinking. At lunch, Nadia suggested we all go to the cafe across the street. Luca joined us. We sat at a table near the window. When my phone rang and Noah's name popped up, I let it ring. Luca asked if I needed to take the call. I said it was just my husband doing his usual check-in and that he could wait 5 minutes. The call went to voicemail. A message came in right after. I glimpsed the first line. It said he wanted to double-check who would pick up Mia that day because daycare had sent a note about a new schedule. I locked the screen and turned the phone face down. Luca asked if my husband called that often. I said it was all day, every day, and that it was ruining my focus at work. I said he acted like I might vanish if he did not keep eyes on me. Nadia backed me up and told him about the rooftop bar night, the long list of missed calls. I let her exaggerate. I let the story grow. In that version, Noah was a man who freaked out if I did not answer one time, not a father alone with a sick child. It is strange how fast you can forget pieces that do not fit the part you want to play. Later, back at my desk, Noah called again. I let it ring out while Luca stood there, leaning on the low partition, talking about some client in another city. I laughed at one of his jokes and watched the call drop. A text came in saying daycare had called him because they could not reach me, and he wanted to confirm that I was still at work and not on the train. I told myself he could handle it. One parent was enough. I ignored the second text too. By late afternoon, Luca came by and asked if I wanted to grab a drink after work, just to unwind. He said it in a relaxed way, like it was nothing. I thought about Mia, daycare pickup, dinner. Then I reminded myself that Noah had already picked her up sometimes when I had other things. I told Luca that I might be able to join for one drink, as long as I could say it was a work thing. I sent Noah a short message saying I might have to stay late to help with some tenant files. I did not wait for his response. We did not go to the cafe this time. Luca said he knew a nicer place in a hotel bar a few blocks away. The lights there were soft and low, the kind that make everyone look a little better. We sat close at a small table. He asked if I ever got time for myself. I told him that between a needy husband and a child, there was no space left for me. I said that if I did not protect my free time, I would vanish into laundry and school emails. While we talked, my phone started again. Noah called, then daycare called, then Noah again. The little banner kept sliding down from the top of the screen. I put it face down on the table. Luca watched and raised an eyebrow. I said my husband worried too much and that it was suffocating. I said he would survive one evening of not knowing exactly what I was doing. Luca nodded and said something about trust. I laughed and said I trusted myself enough for both of us. There was a point where I could have stood up, stepped outside, and called back. I could have asked how Mia was, if she had eaten, if the allergy form got sorted. Instead, I stayed in the warm light, listened to Luca talk about trips he took for work, places he stayed. He told me I should come to some conference as his guest one day. I said it sounded nice. I let my knee bump his under the table and did not move it away. Hours passed without me looking at the time. I only noticed when the bar staff started wiping tables in the corner. When I finally checked my phone, There were 21 missed calls and a chain of messages. Noah had written that Mia's cough was worse, that he gave her medicine again, that daycare had charged a late fee, and had almost called his mother when no one answered. He had asked where I was, if I was safe, if everything was okay. I felt a stab of anger, not guilt. I told myself he was trying to drag me back into his fear. I sent a short reply, saying I had been in a meeting and that my phone was on silent. I wrote that he needed to calm down and stop making drama. I added that we could talk later if he could be reasonable. Then I put the phone away again and turned back to Luca. Back at the apartment that night, Noah was awake at the kitchen table. His laptop was open to a page I did not understand at first. It was some account with our phone carrier. There was a list of numbers, times, and little notes about duration. He closed it when I walked in. He asked how late my meeting went and if everything was okay. I said it was fine, that things took longer, and that he should be happy I was working so hard. He looked at me in a way that felt heavy. He said he did not want to fight, that he was just tired. I went to bed thinking he was being dramatic with his call lists and his notes. In my mind, I was the one under pressure, and he was just making it harder. I had no idea that the boring page on his laptop, the one with all those numbers and times, would one day be printed out and laid flat on a table in front of a judge. By the time the family dinner came around, I had convinced myself that things were finally shifting in my favor. Work felt lighter when I had Luca to talk to. Nadia kept feeding me little updates about how other women in the office thought I was brave for setting boundaries with Noah. Online, the joke about the missed calls had taken on a life of its own. People I barely knew reacted to it. They said they could not stand clingy men. I liked every comment. Noah suggested the family dinner weeks before, back when things were less tense. It was supposed to be a pleasant meeting between our families, a way to keep bonds strong for Mia. I thought about cancelling it, but then I decided it could help me. If everyone saw how he behaved, maybe they would finally side with me. A public scene can be useful if you know how to steer it. The restaurant was one of those busy family places with big tables and 2 bright lights. Children ran between chairs. Plates clattered. The air smelled like garlic and oil. When we arrived, Gloria and Tessa were already at the table. Gloria complained that we were late. I said we would have been on time if Noah had not spent 10 minutes double-checking the route. He did not argue. He just helped Mia out of her coat and greeted my mother. Elaine sat on the far side of the table next to Grant. She smiled at Mia and asked about school. Grant gave me a polite hello, nothing more. I felt a small sting at that. He used to joke with me. Now he was distant. I told myself Noah had been talking badly about me behind my back. It did not occur to me that his family might just be noticing things on their own. For a while, everything looked normal. Menus, drinks, little side conversations. Gloria started in on one of her usual stories about how her second husband used to check her car mileage. She said men like that only got worse with age. I noticed Noah's jaw tighten. I leaned into the story, said, I understood because some men just could not handle independent women. Gloria nodded like I had said something wise. During the main course, Mia got restless and climbed into Noah's lap. He held her, helped her with her food, and wiped her hands with a napkin. I watched him and felt a mix of irritation and guilt, which I turned quickly into anger. He looked like the perfect father, but I knew how anxious he could be, how often he nagged. I thought it was unfair that everyone only saw this gentle side. At some point, Noah cleared his throat. He said he wanted to talk about something small but important. His voice was calm, but I felt the warning in it. I told myself he was going to try to embarrass me in front of everyone. He said that the school had contacted him again about Mia's allergies, that they needed both parents to respond, not just him. He said he felt scared when he could not reach me the other night while Mia was sick. The table went quiet for a moment. I hated that feeling, the way his words seemed more serious than I wanted them to be. So I did what I knew would shift the mood. I laughed. I said he made it sound like I had vanished in a storm, when all that happened was I did not answer my phone for a couple of hours. I said he called 30 times over one evening, and that even Mia rolled her eyes at him. Everyone looked at me. I saw the opening and took it. I pulled out my phone and opened the call log. I held it up so people could see the long list of his name along the screen. I told them this was what I dealt with whenever I went out. I said he could not stand to let me breathe. Gloria leaned closer and shook her head. She said this was exactly how controlling men began, with little things like checking and calling. Tessa laughed and reminded everyone of the story I posted, where he looked like a panicked watchdog. Noah tried to speak. He said that the night in question was not just any night, that Mia had thrown up, and the school had sent a last warning about the allergy form. He said he was alone and worried, and that he just wanted to know where I was. I cut in before he could finish. I said he loved to perform his worry, that he turned normal parenting into a tragedy when I did not hold his hand through it. I said he was making me sound like a careless mother to get sympathy. Elaine raised her eyes. She asked softly if I had seen the messages about Mia being sick. Her voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. I shrugged and said I saw them later, that I trusted him to handle it since he was already there. I added that I did not need to run home every time a child coughed. Grant put down his fork and stared at me. He said, in a flat voice, that when you are the contact, you pick up the phone. I told him he did not know our situation and that he should stay out of it. The mood at the table shifted. Gloria felt it and jumped in. She said Noah should be grateful I even worked and went out, that many women stayed home and lost themselves. She told him to get therapy for his anxiety instead of stalking me with calls and messages. Tessa added her own lines, something about how men did not understand that women needed girl nights. She said my story only showed how insecure he was. My side of the table laughed. His side stayed silent. Mia asked, in a small voice, if Daddy was scared that night. Noah said yes, that he was scared. I rolled my eyes and told her Daddy liked to act scared because he worried too much. I thought I was helping, keeping things light. Instead, Elaine's face tightened. She seemed to see something I did not want her to see. The rest of the dinner slid by on shallow talk and clinking dishes, but under the table the divide had become clear. My family on one side, his on the other, with Mia in the middle. When we stepped outside, the air was cooler. Noah carried Mia toward the car. I walked a few steps behind them with Gloria and Tessa. I complained that he had tried to make me look bad in front of everyone. Gloria agreed and said he was playing the victim. Tessa said I should post another story about the dinner to show people how dramatic he was. I said I might. I liked the idea of controlling the story before he could. Noah strapped Mia into her seat and turned to me. I braced for an argument. Instead, he spoke in a low, even tone. He said he did not want to shout in parking lots anymore. He said he would drop some things off at the apartment tomorrow and that we would talk later. I told him he should grow up and stop writing notes about every time I did not answer, like some kind of hall monitor. He did not respond. He just got into the car and drove away. That night, when I came home, the apartment felt wrong. A few things were missing. A stack of his folded shirts, a shaving kit, Mia's favorite stuffed animal. On the table, his laptop sat open again. The screen showed a spreadsheet this time. Across the top were words like date, time, calls made, reason, response. Down the side, little rows, school email, daycare calling twice, Mia sick, no answer from Evadne. Some cells were colored yellow, some red. I stood there looking at it and felt a flush of anger rise up my neck. I told myself he was building a fake case against me, rewriting normal life as if it were a crime scene. I did not see a pattern, I only saw an attack. I slammed the laptop closed and told myself that when he calmed down, he would delete all of it. I did not understand that he was not keeping those lines for the next argument. He was keeping them for someone else entirely. The next morning, I woke to a kind of silence I did not like. It was not just the normal quiet before Mia woke up. It was a hollow sound, like something had been taken out of the rooms. When I walked into the hallway, I saw the gaps. His shoes were gone from the mat. The spot on the dresser where his watch usually lay was empty. In the bathroom, his razor and aftershave were missing. At first, I thought he had just packed them for an early gym trip, but then I opened the closet and felt my stomach drop. A whole line of his shirts was gone. I told myself not to overreact. I went to the kitchen and found a note on the table. It was not dramatic. He had written that he was staying at his mother's house for a few days with Mia because things felt tense and he wanted some space. He wrote that Mia needed a calm place, that he would make sure she got to school on time. He added that we could talk later when we were both ready. The tone annoyed me more than if he had shouted. He sounded measured, like he had rehearsed it. I called him right away. He answered, but his voice was flat. He explained that he had left early, that Mia had woken up asking why everyone was angry, and that he did not want her to hear us fight again. He invited me to come over to Elaine's later if I wanted to see Mia. I said he was overreacting and making me look like a bad mother. He replied that he had not said anything about me, just that he needed things to be calm for our daughter. I told myself he was twisting it. Gloria took the news exactly how I expected. When I called her, she said he was running to his mother like a little boy, and that this proved he was weak. She told me not to go begging, not to let him punish me for having a life. She said if he wanted to leave, I should let him feel it. Tessa messaged that I should post a soft, vague status about choosing peace, so people would wonder what happened. None of them suggested I go straight to Mia and check how she was. I noticed that, and then pushed the thought away. Still, by afternoon, I could not stand it. I took a bus to Elaine's house. The place was neat and calm as always, with potted plants on the porch and Mia's bike leaning against the side rail. Elaine opened the door with a polite smile and stepped aside to let me in. I could feel her watching me, weighing me. From the living room, I heard Mia's laughter and Noah's voice reading something. Mia ran to me when she saw me, happy and excited. She told me that Grandma made pancakes and that Daddy let her help water the plants. I hugged her and said I was glad she was having fun. Noah came in from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. He said I could take Mia for a bit if I wanted, but asked that we talk first. I felt like a guest in a place where I used to be family. We sat at the table while Mia went back to her cartoons. Noah said he had moved out because he could not keep living in constant arguments and doubt. He said he needed space to think about next steps. He reminded me about the times he could not reach me, about daycare calling him when I did not answer, about the night Mia was sick. He said he did not want to do another scene like the restaurant. He told me he was keeping track of things now, not to punish me, but to stay clear in his own mind. I said he was rewriting history and making me into a villain. I told him every marriage had rough nights and that he was overblowing a few missed calls. I accused him of trying to build a victim story for his family. I said moving out with Mia without a big discussion was emotional blackmail. He shook his head and repeated that he was doing what he thought was best for our daughter. He said I was welcome to see her any time, as long as plans were clear and kept. Elaine stayed mostly quiet, but at one point, she said she had seen patterns for a while. She mentioned times when she had been the one to pick up Mia because I was not reachable. She said she had not judged, but that now, with all this tension, the patterns mattered. I snapped back that she always liked her sons more than me anyway, and that she was just siding with her child. I framed it as a mother's bias. It was easier than hearing her words. When I left the house, I felt something harden inside me. On the bus, I texted Nadia and Tessa that Noah had kidnapped Mia to his mother's and was acting like I was a danger. I said he was using our child to control me. Nadia replied that he sounded manipulative. Tessa said this was exactly why I should be talking to other men, that I needed options. I did not tell them that he had invited me to see Mia any time. That detail did not help my version. At work, Noah's absence from my morning routine left a strange gap, but I filled it quickly. Luca checked in more often, asked how I was holding up. I said my husband had basically abandoned the home because I did not answer my phone enough. I said he was punishing me for having friends and a life. Luca frowned and said that sounded unhealthy. He told me I deserved someone who trusted me. His words sank in like warm water. I stayed late at the office that week more than once. It was easy to say I had extra files to sort or reports to send. No one checked very closely. When I did go home, the apartment felt like a hotel room between guests. Half of everything was missing. One pillow, one side of the closet, one toothbrush. I told myself that this was temporary, that he would come back when he realized how dramatic he was being. What I did not see, but would learn later, was what happened on his side. At his office, while I was laughing in the break room with Luca, he sat in his own break room with a stack of papers. A coworker told me months later that they saw him with printed phone logs and daycare emails. They saw him use the scanner, feeding pages through slowly and saving them in a folder on his drive. The name of the main folder, they said, was something boring like household. Inside, there were subfolders with simple titles: school, daycare, phone records. One afternoon, I came back from lunch with Luca and passed Noah's name on my phone screen in a notification. It was just a calendar alert from a shared family account. I opened it and saw an event he had created called Meeting Personal. It had no location, just a time in the middle of a weekday. I laughed to Nadia and said he was probably going to some support group to complain about his crazy wife. I did not think about it again. The distance between us grew in small, boring ways. He stopped sending long messages. He kept things to short notes about pickup times and school events. When I did call, he sometimes did not answer right away. He would text back later with a brief line saying he was busy and would respond when free. I felt offended and told myself he was playing games. It did not occur to me that he was simply matching the care I had shown him. One day, when I went to collect Mia from Elaine's, I noticed a new key on Noah's ring as he opened the door. I asked what it was for. He said it was nothing I needed to worry about, just something for storage. I heard the word secret in his answer, even though he did not say it, and my anger flared again. I told him he was hiding things and acting shady. He replied that I had made a hobby of hiding where I was and with whom, and that he was just learning to protect himself. I left that evening feeling wronged and misunderstood. In my narrative, I was a woman who had finally started drawing lines, and he was a man who could not cope with losing control. The idea that he might be stepping away, not because he wanted power, but because he was tired and planning something careful, did not fit. So I pushed it away. I went back to work the next morning, joked to Luca about men who run to their mothers, and watched as he smiled and shook his head like he was on my side. It all came to a head on a Thursday that did not feel important at first. I woke up late because I had stayed up messaging with Luca. It was not even serious talk, just little jokes and complaints about work, but I treated it like something special. When my alarm finally got through to me, I saw 2 missed calls from daycare. I told myself they probably wanted some form again and that it could wait. I had a full day at the office. They were paid to look after children. That was their job. At work, everything blurred into meetings and emails. Or at least, that is what I told myself. In truth, I spent long stretches leaning on Nadia's desk, telling stories about Noah. I said he had moved out in a mood and was now trying to control me from a distance. I told her he questioned my every move and that he had started writing things down like a crazy person. Nadia shook her head and said he sounded like he had issues. She told me Luca was right, that I deserved better. Around 4 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed again. It was daycare. Then, a minute later, Noah. I silenced both. Luca had just walked over, asking if I wanted to get a drink after work. He said I looked stressed and that I needed to take care of myself. I told him I probably could, as long as I left in time to pick up Mia. I said Noah already had her most days now, so he could not complain if I had one evening. I ignored the small, tight feeling in my chest. Time slipped. We finished up a few calls, and then I was standing with Luca near the office door, laughing at something he said. It felt good to be the woman he looked at that way, like I was interesting. When I finally checked the time, my heart jumped. I was already 10 minutes past daycare closing. I grabbed my bag, said I had to run, and rushed out without thinking. As I pulled into the daycare parking lot, I saw Noah's car already there. The lights in the building were mostly off. One staff member stood by the door with Mia's backpack. Noah was signing something on a clipboard. My stomach twisted. I hated that he had beaten me there. I hated how calm he looked. I stepped out of the car and walked toward them, trying to look annoyed instead of guilty. Noah turned when he heard my steps. The staff member said they had tried calling me but could not reach me, and that Noah had finally come when they called him. She mentioned something about late fees and policy. I apologized in a quick, shallow way and said I'd been in a meeting with my phone on silent. Noah just watched me with that flat, tired look. When we reached the cars, away from the staff, I started in on him. I said he had made me look like a bad mother by rushing down here as if I was never coming. I said he was enjoying playing the hero in front of other people. He shook his head and said he only came because daycare called him 3 times, and I did not answer. He held up his phone to show the missed calls and the time. I told him that jobs had meetings, and I could not just jump every second my phone rang. He asked in a low voice why I had not at least texted. He said he had called twice earlier in the day to talk about a change in Mia's schedule, and had gotten nothing then either. I snapped back that I did not owe him constant updates anymore, that we were basically separated, and that he was using the child as an excuse to monitor me. In my mind, that was the key idea. He was the one crossing lines, not me. Mia sat in his car, watching us through the window, small face pale and tired. I caught her eyes and looked away quickly. I did not want to see myself the way she was seeing me in that moment. He did not raise his voice. That almost made me angrier. He said this was not about us, that it was about Mia being the last child at daycare again. He said this was not the first time, and that it could not keep happening. He said he had started writing down the dates and times because he needed to be clear. At that, I laughed, sharp and loud. I told him he sounded crazy, like some man in a movie gathering evidence for a fake case. I said no one would care about his little notes. He did not argue. He just looked at me and said my choices had patterns. He said other people might see them differently than I did. The way he said other people made a small cold line run down my back, but I ignored it. I told him he was free to show his spreadsheet to his mother if he wanted a pat on the head. Later that week, I tried to pull him into a real fight at Gloria's house. I asked him to come over for a talk, and he agreed, probably because he wanted to see Mia. We sat in the small living room, Gloria in her usual chair, watching like it was a show. I laid out my version of things. I said he had abandoned the apartment, taken Mia without asking, and gone around telling everyone I was unstable. I said he was building a story to take everything from me. Noah listened, quiet. When he spoke, he did not bite at any of my bait. He said he was not trying to take everything, just to protect what mattered. He said he wanted a stable routine for Mia and clear financial rules, so that bills were paid on time. He mentioned again that he had records now. Emails from daycare, times of pickups, screenshots of calls. He added that my social media posts did not help. I flared at that. I told him he was stalking me online now and twisting jokes into crimes. Gloria jumped in, of course. She told him he was acting like her second husband with his little lists, and that a real man talked to his wife, not to strangers. She said if he dared to use any of this against me, she would tell everyone what he was really like. Tessa hovered in the doorway, listening and scrolling on her phone, occasionally chiming in that no judge cared about a few late pickups. Noah did not rise to it. He simply repeated that this was not about hurting me. He said it was about documenting what had been happening, so he did not feel crazy anymore. He said he had spent years being told he was overreacting, and he no longer trusted my version of events. That sentence stung more than I let show. I told him he was welcome to his little numbers, and that when he calmed down, we could talk about getting back on track. But he did not talk about getting back on track. Instead, he started asking simple, practical questions. He asked what days I could realistically handle full pickup and bedtime. He asked if I had looked at the bank statement lately and noticed certain charges. He said he wanted us to be clear on who paid what from now on. I dismissed all of it as him trying to control me. I did not see the structure he was building. One afternoon soon after, I followed him without planning to. I saw him leaving work and getting into his car instead of heading toward Elaine's house. On impulse, I drove behind him. He did not notice, or if he did not show it. He pulled into a small parking lot near the center and walked toward a low, glass-front office with a sign that had only a last name and the words Family Law on it. I parked around the corner and watched through the front window as he went inside. My heart beat faster. I told myself he was just getting some information, maybe checking something about child support so he could throw it in my face later. A few minutes later, he came back out into the reception area with a middle-aged man in a suit. They spoke quietly. The man handed Noah a simple folder. I could not see what was inside. Noah nodded, shook his hand once, and left. My mind spun as I drove home. I told myself he was bluffing, trying to scare me into begging. I joked to Nadia and Tessa later that he had probably gone running to a cheap lawyer to complain about his evil wife. They laughed with me, but I saw a flicker of worry in Tessa's eyes when I mentioned the lawyer word. She told me, later that night, that I should maybe stop posting about Noah, just in case. I brushed it off and said if anyone looked bad in those posts, it was him, not me. Days passed. The distance solidified into something like a wall. One evening, outside Gloria's house again, after yet another argument that did not go the way I wanted, I hurled all my usual lines at him. I said he was weak, that he needed his mother and some lawyer to hold his hand, that no one would believe his side. I waited for him to snap back so I could twist his anger into proof of his abuse. He did not. He buckled Mia into the car seat, checked her belt, and closed the door gently. Then he turned to me, meeting my eyes with that same steady look he had used in the daycare parking lot. He said he was done shouting in front of our child, done going in circles. He said, in a calm voice that I still hear, that from now on, he would not argue with me about what did or did not happen. He said he would just handle it properly. The courtroom felt smaller than in movies. My legs shook, but I kept my chin up. Noah sat across from me with his lawyer and a folder on the table. When the judge asked for records, the lawyer slid out a stack of paper, my life in numbers. Every call, every time, every night I pressed ignore while I was busy. He pointed to the cluster from the hotel bar. The judge compared it with daycare notes, bank charges, posts. She said patterns mattered. She gave Noah weekdays with Mia and control of joint account. I stared at the log.